Welcome to the Campbell Police Department's first virtual Q&A. We wanted to use this as an opportunity to answer your questions, hear your thoughts, and continue that important dialogue that we've had over so many years. Unfortunately, with the current pandemic, we can't be doing this in person like I would want to, but I don't want to let that stand in our way of answering your questions and providing valuable information so that our community can truly understand what the police department does, the equipment we need, and where we're going in the future. So I want to thank you for watching this video. I want to thank those of you who contributed by asking questions and giving us your input. And I also wanted to thank our City Council for their unwavering support. And our Mayor, Susan Landry, wanted to share a couple thoughts.
In these incredibly challenging times, now more than ever, it is important for the Campbell community to engage in the national conversation regarding policing. By understanding what our police department has done and their focus on staying at the forefront of advancements, I think you'll be as impressed as I am. The Campbell Police Department has always been at the forefront of innovation in training, technology, transparency, accountability, and community outreach. They pride themselves on being open to the community for an interactive dialogue. Over the years, I've had various conversations with the chief and command staff, and I'm finding them willing to have honest conversations on difficult topics. As your mayor, I have complete confidence in our police department. Otherwise, I would be the first to sound the alarm and demand change. We have a well-trained, competent, and professional agency that proudly delivers the highest level of service to our Campbell community. I am honored and grateful for the men and women in the Campbell Police Department who serve our city bravely.
Over the past several weeks, we have heard numerous questions and concerns over our request to purchase a BEARCAT armored vehicle. And from hearing the comments and seeing the questions, there's a lot of misinformation out there on the background of this request and really what it entails. I think the first misconception is how this is going to be funded. And there was concerns about Measure O funds being used to purchase this vehicle. That's absolutely incorrect. No Measure O funds are being proposed for the purchase of this vehicle. The request is not for this upcoming fiscal year. There's no plan to purchase it in 2020 or 2021. This is slated for potentially in the fiscal year of 2022. So this upcoming year, we're going to be engaged in dialogue, hearing your feedback, and talking more about it. Another concern is that we already have an armored vehicle, and why is there a need for another one? To give you a little background, we received an armored personnel carrier in 1998 from the Department of Defense, and we've had that vehicle, a surplus military piece of equipment, up until last year. And the decision was made in 2019 that based on the functionality of it and its age, and also how it looked, that it was no longer a viable piece of equipment, and that was returned last year. So currently we don't have an armored vehicle in our inventory, and when the need arises, we look to our partnering agencies to assist us. And there are several factors to consider when requesting assistance from another agency. The first, most concerning one is their availability. Is there going to be a timely response to an emergency situation? And if there was a situation that required rescues of community members, of officers, I don't want there to be a 30, 45 minute, hour delay on getting help to those who need it. Another issue is policy and procedures. When a piece of equipment is coming from another jurisdiction, we don't have control over that agency's policies. There are also training issues. For the use of this type of equipment, it's imperative that our officers are training with it on a regular basis. And if we're relying on another agency, that creates potential issues with how the vehicle is utilized, and the coordination with the officer from the other agency. One of the comments I've heard is that this type of vehicle is not needed in Campbell. We live in a world of unknowns and at times dangerous. And you look back several weeks ago to the small community of Ben Lomond with 3,000 residents. And that was a perfect example of a situation where an armored vehicle was necessary. You had an individual armed with weapons shooting at police officers with explosive devices. I don't think that any Ben Lomond resident was expecting that to happen. While I hope that there would never be a critical incident in Campbell that would necessitate a piece of equipment like this, I want us to be prepared to serve you and to keep you safe. I've heard concerns about a vehicle like this escalating situations. However, the reality is that this vehicle is only going to be used in situations that are critical, that involve potential loss of human life. So one of the examples I've given is an incident that happened in DENNY'S in 2019 where an armed gunman barricaded himself inside the restaurant for over 11 hours. What led up to that barricade was a violent confrontation and assault of one of the workers there. The job of a police officer is a dangerous one, and each one of our officers puts on their uniform and badge and goes out and serves our community bravely. Situations like Denny or other instances where our SWAT team has served high-risk search warrants on individuals with weapons, known felons with violent history, we need to make sure that our officers are able to do their jobs safely in an environment that protects not only them, but our community. Part of that is providing the necessary equipment to mitigate some of those safety risks. Because if we're not able to keep our officers safe, then we can't keep the community safe, and that's my utmost priority. I've heard concerns about not wanting a BEARCAT in the Campbell community, and I've also heard the statements that we should just be borrowing it from other police departments. At the end of the day, we need a vehicle that is going to enable our officers to go into dangerous situations to keep them safe. The BEARCAT is intended for high-stakes situations where lives are in danger. Over the 20 years that we had the armored personnel carrier, and more recently over the last several years when we've had our partner agencies bring their armored vehicles into Campbell, we have safely resolved numerous situations. There have been questions about the cost of the BEARCAT, and not just the purchase, but ongoing repair and maintenance. The BEARCAT isn't going to be driven on a daily basis, and the upkeep is similar to any truck you see driving down the road. It requires the same oil changes and tire rotations that your cars require. So the ongoing costs are fairly limited. In the 15 to 20 year lifespan of a BEARCAT, it's approximately $15,000 a year. And if you look at what that $15,000 a year can do to protect our community and keep you safe, I think that it's a small price to pay for that level of security. Even though the request to purchase the BEARCAT was made, the actual vehicle hasn't been designed. And I know there were concerns about the different features that come with it. Those are some of the things that I want your input on. I want to understand your concerns, and I want to continue this conversation and understand what your expectations are, because there could potentially be situations that require immediate response. I want there to be an open dialogue on both sides, and I promise that the police department will come with an open mind and hear your feedback and look for ways of coming together with the appropriate policies and procedures in place, and a department who understands their role in our community. A piece of equipment like this can be utilized as it's intended, to save lives, not to escalate situations, not to be used in inappropriate events, but to save lives. One of the conversations happening not only locally, but at a national level, is about defunding the police. And I think this term means different things to different people. As I understand it, defunding really is about providing the appropriate resources to different programs such as mental health, homelessness, substance abuse. And I am fully in favor of enhancing those programs in our county. The conversation then comes to where those funds come from. But the funding source isn't as easy as taking a portion of the police department's budget and putting it into those services. These are complex systems with multiple agencies involved, and I know that our city council has already put in the request to county supervisors to provide more of those services. To say that you can take funds out of the police department budget or some other department's budget and move it into these resources is much easier said than done. Now, I think that we can continue working together, look for ways of funding, and make sure that the police department has an adequate budget to provide the high level of public safety that we are known for, while also funding important services in our community. One of the terms that's being commonly discussed is the militarization of the police. And that term can have a lot of different meanings. And at the end of the day, the police department needs to be equipped to handle the current situations that are happening in our community. And unfortunately, many times those situations involve high-powered rifles and individuals who are known to commit violent crimes. We understand the concerns over militarization, and over the last several years, we have made changes. We've returned our armored vehicle that was actually a surplus military vehicle that looked like a tank. There have been several recent opportunities for us to acquire free armored vehicles from the military. But we've heard you, and those vehicles are obviously militarized and have been used in combat zones. And we've decided to turn those opportunities down because we don't want military vehicles driving through Campbell. But a BEARCAT isn't a military vehicle. It's intended for law enforcement use. It's built on a civilian vehicle, and it's intended to keep our community safe. While in some aspects, our police department looks somewhat militarized, really what we've done over the last several years is finding opportunities to humanize our officers. We want to engage with our community in events like Coffee with a Cop, or when you get to come down to one of our festivals and dunk a cop in our dunk booth. Throughout the years, the Campbell Police Department has been innovative and at the forefront of technology. In the mid-90s, we were one of the first agencies in the country to equip all of our patrol vehicles with in-car video systems. They were actually VCRs in the trunks back then. And in 2008, we were the first in Santa Clara County to have all of our officers wearing body-worn cameras, and one of the first 5 in the state of California to do this. And the current system is state-of-the-art. And just like being at the forefront of the body-worn cameras, we look for opportunities to be progressive and understand the needs of the community. When the 8 Can't Wait campaign came out, I was proud to see that we were already in compliance. These are just a few of the examples of how we are adapting to the world we're living in, and we're finding new opportunities and new ways to serve our community better. Ongoing training is extremely important for the job of a police officer, and there are many standards in place imposed by the state of California. But we go above and beyond those standards. We put a priority on training our officers and providing them with the level of knowledge and skill so that they can respond to the calls for service in our community. All of our patrol officers have attended the Crisis Intervention Team, CIT, and have specialized training on dealing with individuals who are in a mental health crisis. But we go beyond just the CIT. We've partnered with County Behavioral Health, who provides ongoing scenario-based training where officers are put into real-life scenarios that are dictated based on their responses and gives them the opportunity to see techniques that work and change their approach if a technique isn't working. One of the other training priorities has been racial justice. Our officers have received training on implicit and explicit bias. And we've also sent our officers to the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles so that they can better understand the history of racial injustice in this country. The Campbell Police Department has 3 core principles of policing, and they're on the wall of my office so that every time an employee walks by, they're reminded of the fact of 3 specific components of our job that guide us in everything we do: service, justice, and fundamental fairness. And instead of asking employees to memorize a mission statement, I ask our officers to look at these 3 different things and not just be able to repeat what it means to me, but be able to have their own understanding of it and be able to articulate it. Because you can take these 3 principles and put it to any situation one of our officers is involved in. If they follow those principles in everything they do, I feel confident that we are providing the level of service that's expected of us. For those of you who are interested in crime statistics in Campbell, I would encourage you to visit our website. You can also go to crimereports.com to give you an idea of the different type of calls in your neighborhood. And each year we publish a year in review that gives an overview of what happened that previous year, including the crime data. It's something that we're very proud of and highlights not just the enforcement side of what we do, but also that community side, the side of us that connects with each and every one of you, that looks for opportunities to build that partnership and to collaborate as we go into the future. I'm very proud of the fact that Part 1 crimes, which are violent crimes, have decreased over the last 5 years in Campbell. In order to continue reducing crime in Campbell, we all have to work together. And we have to come together and find innovative ways to solve problems. Whether it's bicycles being stolen off of balconies, or packages being taken from porches, or even now catalytic converters being stolen off of vehicles. We look for innovative ways like our nationally recognized BAIT program. In Campbell, there's really no call too small. If you have a concern or a question, call us. We're successful when we work together. It's clear that racial bias exists in our country today. We want our community members feeling safe and secure in Campbell. But I want to assure you that when we receive calls based solely on the color of someone's skin, our dispatchers are trained to determine if a crime is occurring, and we will respond to legitimate crimes and concerns, but we will not be a part of continuing the racial bias in our community. The county health orders have been changing constantly over the last several months, and there's concerns about enforcement of some of those rules. And my view of the police department's role in that is education, making sure people understand why those rules are in place and reminding them of the need to follow the guidelines. It's imperative for all of us to do our part. We need to be considerate of not only those around us, but the businesses that we go into. It's a difficult time that we're living in, and something as easy as putting on a mask will help alleviate a lot of that stress. COVID has changed the world that we live in, and it has caused us to make certain adjustments in the police department. One of the programs that has been impacted by COVID is our abandoned vehicle program. And I know that we've received several questions about this. While we've still been marking, obviously, abandoned vehicles over the last several months, we're not expecting our residents to move their vehicles every 72 hours when there are rules in place that are requiring them to stay home. As the shelter-in-place restrictions are lifted, we will continue making adjustments, and my hope is that we will get back to our normal way of life as soon as we can. I want to thank you for your continued support. There have been a lot of difficult conversations recently, but I think they're healthy and absolutely necessary to continue to grow. I want you to continue feeling comfortable asking questions and giving your feedback. That's what we need to do to improve the service we give you. I hope you and your families stay healthy and well, and I look forward to the opportunity to have these conversations in person.